You're closer to true masculine power than you realize. And I'm about to show you the one missing piece that unlocks the next level. You've already done the hard part. You found your personal code. You set boundaries that stick. You gained real respect. You live by your own rules now. In the next 20 minutes, you'll discover how your current strength is just the starting point for something much greater. How the code you've built has prepared you for the next leap. Most men never get this far. But there's one crucial understanding about masculine development that separates those who plateau from those who transcend. And you're literally one insight away from grasping it. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from a place of power that most men never reach. You've discovered your code, that personal set of rules you live by, the standards you won't lower, the boundaries you won't move, the values you won't give up, your way of making choices without asking for permission. You stopped explaining yourself to people who weren't there when you learned your lessons. You became someone nobody can control. Here's what I'm going to reveal. The strength you've already built isn't the end goal. It's the launching pad for legendary influence. And you're positioned to make that leap right now. The code you found? That's not mastery. That's waking up. And there's a huge difference between waking up and being fully awake. Most men who learn to say no think they've won the game. They set boundaries. They find their worth. They separate themselves from weak people. They have. But they only separated themselves from the bottom. There are levels to this that you haven't seen yet. Heights that make what you know now look like kindergarten compared to college. You learned to live by your code. But did you learn to become your code? Let me show you what you don't know yet. Here's what they don't tell you about strong men. Even among men who found the path, there's still a ladder to climb. Not everyone who finds the code masters it. Not everyone who masters it goes beyond it. And not everyone who goes beyond it becomes legendary. There are 7 levels of strength. Most men never get past level 3. They learn boundaries. Level 1. They stick to their standards. Level 2. They become picky about who gets their time. Level 3. Then they stop climbing. They think they reach the top. But the men at levels 5, 6, and 7, they're playing a completely different game. They're not just living by their rules. They're making reality bend around them. They're not just getting respect. They're creating influence that lasts forever. The question isn't whether you found your code. The question is, how deep does your strength really go? Let me break this down for you. Let me tell you about something you might not have felt yet. True ease. This isn't about hiding from the world. This is about being so real that your power flows without effort. So solid that keeping your standards happens automatically. At this level, you don't think about your boundaries. They just exist. You don't remember your code. You are your code. You don't choose how to respond. The right response just comes out naturally. Most men are still manually running their rules. Men at level 4 have it on autopilot. They don't decide whether to explain themselves. The idea never comes up. They don't choose between their values and easy money. There's no choice to make. Their character runs like breathing, invisible, constant, and unstoppable. This is where you stop managing how you look and start just being who you are. Where you stop acting strong and start being strong. Have you hit this point, or are you still thinking about your code every day? Stop for a second. Think about it. But level 4 isn't the top. There's a change that happens at level 5 that totally transforms how people treat you. Your reputation starts arriving before you do. You walk into rooms and the energy changes before you speak. People change how they act because they know your standards. Good opportunities come to you instead of you chasing them. This isn't about networking or showing off. This is what happens when consistent character creates its own pull. Men at this level don't build relationships. High-quality people seek them out. They don't create opportunities. Their reputation attracts the right situations. They don't prove their worth. Their track record speaks first. The difference between level 4 and level 5 is huge. Level 4 is about mastering yourself. Level 5 is about your mastery changing everything around you. At level 4, you control you. At level 5, your control starts shaping your whole world. This is where strategy becomes natural, where influence happens without trying, where power becomes invisible but undeniable. Does your presence alone command respect? Or are you still earning it through what you do? Think about that question. Really think about it. Most men will never reach level 6, not because they can't, but because they can't see what's possible. At level 6, you become someone who builds reality. You don't just react to what happens, you create what happens. You don't just work within systems, you design systems. You don't just adapt to your environment, you shape it to match your principles. Men at this level understand something lower levels can't see. Real power isn't about controlling people. It's about creating situations where your values naturally win. They build businesses that run according to their code even when they're not there. They create relationships that get stronger over time without constant work. They set up systems that produce results that match their principles automatically. This is influence at its highest level. They don't need to micromanage because they built environments where the right behavior is the natural behavior. They don't need to enforce their standards because they created cultures where those standards are the starting point. The architect doesn't just live by his code. He builds worlds where his code becomes the natural law. Let that sink in for a moment. And then there's level 7, the legendary. These are men whose influence goes beyond their physical presence, whose principles keep shaping reality long after they're gone, whose impact compounds across generations. Marcus Aurelius died almost 2,000 years ago, but his code still influences men today. Teddy Roosevelt's principles still shape how we think about strong leadership. Some business titans created systems and ideas that outlasted their creators by decades. This is the difference between success and legend. Success is personal. Legend is forever. Men at level 7 don't just master themselves. They become examples that other men study for centuries. They don't just create influence. They establish principles that become timeless. Their code becomes a light that guides other men long after its creator has left the physical world. This isn't about fame or being known. Many legendary men were barely known when they were alive. This is about creating something that goes beyond your individual life. The question that separates level 6 from level 7 is this: will your influence survive when you're gone? Take a breath. Feel the weight of that question. So where are you really? Let me walk you through this, and you'll know exactly where you stand. If you're still explaining yourself sometimes, still second-guessing your standards, you're at level 1. You learned boundaries exist, and you're trying to use them. That's actually huge progress. Most men never even get here. If your boundaries are solid and people know not to test you, but you're still actively maintaining your position, You're at level 2. Your standards don't move. You've gained real respect. This is where a lot of strong men live. If you're selective about your time and energy, and you've mastered strategic withdrawal, you're at level 3. You're not available to everyone anymore. You learned the power of being scarce. This is impressive territory. But here's where it gets interesting. If your code runs automatically, if you don't think about your responses because they come naturally, you've hit level 4. Your character is integrated. You don't choose who to be. You simply are who you are. If your reputation arrives before you do, if opportunities seek you out, you're at level 5. Your presence alone commands respect. High-quality people want to be around you without you trying. If you design your environment, if you create systems that naturally align with your values, you're at level 6. You're not just living in reality, you're shaping it. And if your influence goes beyond your physical presence, if your principles keep shaping things even when you're not there, you've reached level 7. That's legendary territory. Here's what I've seen about men who find their code. Most stop at level 2 or 3 and think they finished the journey. They set boundaries. They gained respect. They learned to say no. They found their worth. And that feels so much better than where they started that they think they reached mastery. But they only graduated from unconscious weakness to conscious strength. They're still manually running their principles, still thinking about their responses, still managing their image, still conscious of their choices. Real mastery begins when the code becomes unconscious, when it runs automatically. When you don't choose your character, you simply are it. Most men never make this jump because they're happy with the huge improvement they already experienced. They don't know that what feels like the top is actually just the first plateau. The gap between level 3 and level 7 is bigger than the gap between level 0 and level 3. Think about that. The distance you still have to go is bigger than the distance you've already traveled. What separates men who plateau from men who transcend is understanding that personal mastery is just the foundation for something bigger. Level 1 through 3 is about you, your boundaries, your standards, your code, your respect. Level 4 through 7 is about impact, your influence, your legacy, your contribution to something beyond yourself. The men who reach the higher levels understand that the code isn't an end goal. It's a tool for creating something that goes beyond the individual. They realize that mastering themselves was just the first step toward mastering their impact on reality itself. This is what separates good men from great men, and great men from legendary men. Good men find the code. Great men master the code. Legendary men become a code that others find. Let that settle in your mind. At the higher levels, the strategies become more sophisticated, more subtle, more powerful. At level 4, it's about unconscious mastery. Your character becomes so integrated that it runs automatically. You develop rituals that solidify who you are until your identity becomes unshakable. At level 5, it's about reputation building. Your consistency becomes your credibility. Your track record becomes your calling card. People know what you stand for before they meet you. At level 6, it's about environmental design. You create systems that naturally produce the results you want. You build cultures where your values become the default. You shape reality to match your principles. At level 7, it's about legacy construction. You preserve principles that outlast you. Your impact becomes generational. Your influence becomes timeless. These aren't tactics you can Google or find in basic self-help. These are advanced frameworks that only become available once you've mastered the foundational levels. They require a depth of character that most men never develop. The strategies that create legendary impact are invisible to men still learning basic boundary setting. It's like trying to explain calculus to someone who hasn't learned basic math yet. The concepts don't even make sense until you've built the foundation. So here's the question that will determine where you go from here. Are you satisfied with where you are? Or are you hungry for where you could go? Are you happy with having found your code, or do you want to master it completely? Are you satisfied with personal change, or do you want to create influence that outlasts your lifetime? Are you ready to find out what lies beyond the plateau where most men stop climbing? Because if you are, if you're one of the rare men who sees that what you've achieved is just the beginning, then you're ready for advanced understanding that most men of your current level never access. You're ready to learn the strategies, frameworks, and principles that separate the legendary from the merely successful. You're ready to find out how men transition from living by code to becoming a code that others find. You're ready to discover what's possible when a man of your caliber stops settling for personal mastery and starts building legendary impact. But here's the thing. Not everyone is ready for this understanding. The men who reach the higher levels all share one trait. They saw that their current level of understanding wasn't their ceiling. It was their foundation. They understood that the code they'd found was just the beginning of what was possible. They were hungry for depth that most men never even know exists. If you're still reading this, if these words are hitting something deeper than satisfaction with your current level, then you might be one of them. You might be ready to find out what lies beyond the boundaries of your current understanding. You might be ready to learn how personal mastery becomes environmental influence, how character becomes culture, how principles become legacy. You might be ready to discover the difference between being successful and being legendary. But recognition isn't enough. You have to act on it. Most men who hear this will nod along and then go back to their current level. They'll think it sounds interesting, but they won't do anything about it. They'll stay comfortable at level 2 or 3, thinking they've done enough. But you're not most men, are you? You didn't find your code by accident. Something in you was always searching for it. Something in you questioned the rules while everyone else followed them blindly. That same something is what will determine whether you keep climbing or plateau like everyone else. The question isn't whether you're capable of reaching higher levels. Men of your caliber have already proven they can go beyond ordinary limitations. The question is whether you'll see that what you've achieved is just the entry point to what's possible. Whether you'll keep climbing when the path becomes less obvious and the strategies become more sophisticated. Whether you'll pursue mastery that goes beyond personal improvement and enters the realm of lasting influence. Because the difference between a man who finds his code and a man who becomes legendary isn't talent, intelligence, or even dedication. It's recognition that the summit you think you've reached is actually just base camp for the real climb. The men who become legendary are simply the ones who kept climbing when everyone else thought they'd already arrived. They saw that true mastery is not a destination. It's a continuous rise. They understood that each level of mastery simply reveals the next level that's possible. They knew that the view from where they were, no matter how good it felt, wasn't the best view available. Are you ready to find out what lies beyond your current summit? Or will you be content with the view from base camp? The choice, as always, is yours. But now you know. There are heights you haven't even seen yet. And they're waiting for men with the vision to see them and the courage to climb toward them. You came here thinking you'd arrived. Now you know you've barely started. You thought finding your code was the end of the journey. Now you see it was just the beginning. You believed you'd separated yourself from ordinary men. Now you understand there are levels of extraordinary you haven't even glimpsed. That's not discouraging. That's the opportunity. Because it means what you've built so far is the platform for something much greater. It means the strength you've developed is preparation for the influence you could create. It means the code you live by could become the code that guides others long after you're gone. The question isn't whether you've done enough. The question is whether you're ready to do what's possible. If you recognize that your current level is just your starting point, drop "next level" in the comments. Not as a claim that you are already there, as a commitment that you're ready to climb higher. If you see that what you've achieved is the foundation, not the ceiling, let me know. Because the men who are ready for advanced understanding don't just consume content. They take action. They don't just nod along. They commit to growth. They don't just recognize higher levels exist. They prepare to reach them. Hit that subscribe button because next week we're diving into the Invisible King Protocol. How men who've reached the highest levels operate from such complete mastery that they never need to announce their power. We're exploring the difference between those who talk about strength and those who simply possess it. The difference between performing mastery and embodying it. The difference between claiming your code and becoming your code. Your journey from foundation to legend continues. You thought you'd arrived, didn't you? Now you know. You didn't reach the destination. You found the path. You didn't complete the journey. You qualified for the real adventure. The climb gets steeper from here, but the view gets more incredible. The path gets narrower, but the destination gets more magnificent. The journey gets more challenging, but the impact gets more lasting. You didn't stumble onto your code by accident. You were always meant to find it. Now you know why. It wasn't the end goal. It was preparation for what comes next. You found your foundation. Now build your legend. The ascent awaits.